The high point of the May 25 to 30 annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group will be the election that will decide who will be the next president of the Development Finance Institution. Dr. Samuel Muzele Maimbo, a Zambian national, is in the race for the AfDB presidency. Dr. Maimbo comes along with an impressive personal and professional work experience from Lusaka to Washington, D.C. and beyond. We have the pleasure of having Dr. Samuel Maimbo tonight for this exclusive interview from the Abuja studios of the Arise News channel. Chungulompo Mukwai, Dr. Maimbo, and hope I got that a little bit that correct from the Zambia's language of Bemba.
Very well done.
Very well done. Thank you so much.
Well done. Dalumba Maningi.
Thank you so much it's good having you here. Chat to me briefly, Dr. Maimbo, about your campaign so far for the office of the President of the AfDB. What unique selling points are you canvassing as a candidate for the office?
I am running for the presidency of the African Development Bank because this beautiful continent of ours is at a crossroads. On one hand, we have countries like Nigeria that are growing. We've got 15 countries across the continent that are growing at more than 6%. Unfortunately, we still have way too many Africans who are being left behind. We have communities who are looking for jobs. We have young people who want to do things differently with more ambition and more confidence. I'm running for this race because after 30 years of working right across the continent, I know firsthand that we have what it takes to make a difference. But that investment starts at the African Development Bank. It's uniquely positioned to make a huge difference on the continent. And after 30 years of globally working on development, I want to come back home and devote 100% of my time working alongside my colleagues within the African Development Bank to make a huge difference.
Very interesting. Let's drill down a little bit more, Dr. Maimbo, about the vision and policies that you plan to pursue if you are elected as the next AfDB chief.
I would love to do that. My vision is built on 3 basic pillars. The first pillar is about achieving significantly higher rates of growth by doubling down on the assets we already have. The 60% of the world's arable land. We have minerals on this continent. We have our biggest assets is our brain power and our capacity. I want to make sure that we're doubling down on the same formula that other continents have used, investing in infrastructure, investing in energy, investing in the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which stands today the largest free trade continental agreement in the world. The only challenge we have left is implementation. Let's execute and deliver. The second pillar is about working with governments across the continent. We are privileged that we are living at a time where we have more leaders on the continent who know what they need to do to deliver. The leadership here has demonstrated significant willingness to make tough decisions about reform. They don't need any more lectures about what needs to be done. What they need is support, significantly higher levels of financial support to get the job done. The third pillar is about the African Development Bank itself as an institution. It's important that in this environment, with the global pressures as we face them today, that we have an institution that is devotedly focused on results and good outcomes. That means focusing on efficiency and effectiveness, getting things done as quickly as our clients demand it, making sure that we are effecting good partnerships, because this is not a job for one man, not a job for one institution, but a job for all of us to get things right, which is why I'm delighted to be in Nigeria, because a core pillar of our development efforts is really about energy, making sure that we put all our hands together and make sure that Africa doesn't try and grow itself in the dark, because that can't be done, and we need to do much more. That's what excites me about this race, the opportunity to work alongside like-minded leaders and experts in this field to make a difference.
So if we drill down a little bit into, now you talk about the vision and the policies, the overarching policies and visions, but if we talk about the key areas of AfDB operations or activities you would like to focus on, and very quickly in your tenure if elected.
One thing about my vision for the African Development Bank is to focus on implementation. We have lots of plans around about what needs to be done. Let me be specific and give you an example. We have 600 million Africans who don't have energy. At the same time, we have lots of experts in the field. We have a lot of financing available to make these urgent energy investments that are required. What I would like to do at the African Development Bank is pick Nigeria and make it the hub for our Africa-wide energy strategy. Have a dedicated team that focuses on 4 key elements of this strategy. Number 1, have a dedicated team focused on data and knowledge and research so that anybody on the continent or elsewhere who wants to invest in energy has one central point to come. The second aspect of this team is the financing. We need to have a deal room in this center, an area where we can leverage the financing of the African Development Bank through guarantees, securitized financing, to attract additional private sector capital into this sector. One of the things that Nigeria has is a very vibrant financial sector. We've got financial structuring engineers who can perform wonders. I want to make sure that there's a central point that has a continent-wide mandate where we can do these deals consistently throughout the year. At the same place, I also want it to be a place where governments from around the continent can come and showcase the pipeline of transactions that they have. The approach we have at the moment, where we have too many countries trying to do things on their own, won't take us far. And finally, a critical element of what Nigeria has is talent. We've got skilled young people coming out with engineering degrees, with mining degrees right here in Nigeria. We've got people who have skills that we need to make sure that we are totally focused on energy development. Now, this is just one example on energy. I want to do the same with agriculture, with infrastructure. So when you hear me on the campaign trail, the one thing you will consistently hear is how we get things done. Let's get down to the business of implementation. When I think about the Continental Free Trade Agreement, the fastest way in which African countries can grow, we've talked about this agreement for quite some time. We don't have 10 years to implement it. Not with a global conversation around the world that's taking place right now. I will dedicate all of my efforts from day one, focusing on implementation. It will be hard work, but let's get it done.
The engagement by the AfDB as a DFI is going to go mainly through private sector. So why is this very important, what you call private sector engagement? What would you be doing differently, and why would you do that?
Well, first of all, you rightly point out that we must do more on the private sector side, because the model for development has changed from one that is aid dependent, one that is public sector led, to one that is private sector driven, and that's a good thing, because that's the surest path in which we can create jobs. Internally within the African Development Bank, my focus will be making sure that the teams working on private sector transactions are working together with the systems and process devoted to private sector transactions. And there are many good examples of MDBs who have walked this path from the Inter-American Development Bank right across to the Asian Development Bank on the other side of the continent. There are many lessons to be learned. I want to make sure that I'm working with the teams who are doing really good work in reaching out to the private sector. I want them to come back into the institution with systems and procedures that allows them to make decisions quickly and effectively. No private sector member wants to wait 18 months or 12 months for a decision to be made. The processing time has to be faster. Importantly, I want to make sure that the African Development Bank is the lender of last resort in all opportunities. We're stretching our balance sheet with guarantees, with securitization efforts that pull in the private sector financing. And whenever I mention private sector financing, I want to make sure we're paying close attention to African financial institutions who are already on the ground, African pension funds, central banks. Let's challenge ourselves to put money, African money, to African challenges so that our African solutions are much more sustainable and are less subject to variations in the availability of financing that we are going to experience globally, given where the world is heading at the moment. That central role for private sector development is a key element in everything we've discussed this evening. Be it infrastructure, be it energy, be it job creation for young people, it's the surest path of making sure that as an institution, the African Development Bank is a catalyst for development at a faster rate. And I want to make it clear that the African Development Bank is doing good work on the continent. There are many good projects which are having a positive impact. The challenge we all collectively have, the ADB, governments, private sector, is that these projects are not big enough to make the lasting difference that gets more countries into middle income status than the path we are on at the moment.
So you talk about the global space. The change of leadership at the AfDB comes at a time now of global geopolitical and economic vulnerability and uncertainty. So I'm sure whoever wins, get elected, is going to have it. How do you intend to navigate the headwinds, the global headwinds, and position the AfDB for meaningful economic development impact on the continent?
Let me start off by acknowledging that a lot of the decisions that we have seen being made globally are having an impact. The pace at which they are being announced and implemented is significant. I come from Zambia, where we were badly affected by HIV and AIDS, and aid from the United States was extremely helpful in stemming that crisis and stopping it at its feet. And so when there is a rapid reduction of health facilities, it does have an impact. At the same time, I am quick to say that these decisions that are being made globally must be the wake-up call for all of us as Africans that it's time to do things differently. There are certain things such as education and health that we must manage ourselves. We've seen this movie before, to be clear. And also, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to look at ourselves as African countries, to find solutions on our continent that will make sure that global variations in financing, be they concessional financing or private sector financing, have less of an impact going forward than is currently the case. But you are absolutely right. This is a challenging year to run an election, but at the same time, I also want to point out that in my 30 years of development experience, this particular phase is not new to me. We've gone through periods where a large development partner has pulled back financing. We've gone through periods of war or financial crisis. We've gone through COVID, where African countries have been at the back of the line. We need to change that. We need to have an honest conversation about things that are within our control. We need to have uncomfortable situations that challenge ourselves to do things differently. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I want to use the global experience that I've gained at the World Bank with the in-depth, local, and broad-based knowledge I have of Africa to work together with colleagues across the continent who I meet every day to make a difference on the continent. We've been campaigning now for about 9 months. I've gone to over 27 countries. In each of the countries, I've met public sector officials who are clear-eyed about what they want to do. I've met private sector, the domestic private sector, and oftentimes young Africans who've been abroad, who've come back home and want to make a difference. I've met young people who are in the creative space doing amazing things. I want to be able to join those efforts, use the African Development Bank to make sure they're getting the level of support, the pace of support that matches their level of ambition.
Okay, Dr. Samuel Maimbo, we thank you for this exclusive chat on your campaign as a candidate for the position of the AfDB president. We wish you all the best and see you in 2 weeks' time at the annual meetings in Côte d'Ivoire.